My own family chose my sister, told me I was nothing, said I was unstable and would never survive without them. But while they were busy rewriting my story, I was quietly building something they never saw, moving money they could not track, setting up a legal revenge they would not understand until it was too late. And the morning federal agent showed up at 6:12 a.m. with a warrant, everything they built started collapsing. Because this was never just about revenge, it was about proving exactly who I really was. I'm your host, and this is a true story about family, power, and the kind of revenge that ends in handcuffs. Chapter 1. I got the message from my mother on a quiet December evening while the office lights around me flickered on one by one and the last few people on my floor packed up to leave. She said it would be better if I did not come home for Christmas this year, not because they did not want to see me, but because Olivia Hartman's in-laws would be there and everything needed to feel appropriate. They did not say I was not welcome, they just made it clear I would make things awkward. I read the message twice, then set my phone down slowly, like it carried more weight than it should have. Outside my window in San Jose, the city stretched out in soft gold and white, headlights sliding past each other in long lines. People were going somewhere, expected somewhere, included somewhere. I stayed where I was. This was not new. I had spent most of my life learning how to exist just outside the version of things that mattered to them. A memory slipped in before I could stop it. A dinner in Boston years ago when Olivia was talking about an idea for a healthcare platform that could help hospitals predict patient surges before they happened. Everyone leaned toward her like she was saying something important. My father smiled in that quiet, proud way I had spent years trying to earn. My mother kept asking questions, encouraging her, drawing more out of her. No one knew I had said the same thing months earlier after a late night at Stanford, sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook full of sketches and half-built models. I had explained it carefully, trying not to sound too eager. My father had nodded then too, distracted, already thinking about something else. I never corrected them that night. I sat there, listening as Olivia became the one who had thought of something worth noticing. That was how it usually worked. My phone buzzed again, pulling me back. Hartman Group Capital, Series D, follow-up. I stared at the name longer than I should have. Hartman Group was not just another firm, it was the firm tied to Olivia's new life, to the version of success my family understood without needing it explained. I remembered something Olivia had said once back when she first started dating Daniel. We had been standing in the kitchen late at night, the only time she ever sounded honest. His father does not care about charm, she had said gently. He only cares about what's real. I had shrugged it off back then. Now it felt different. I opened the email. They had reviewed our latest numbers. They wanted a follow-up meeting in New York. No mention of Olivia, no connection, just interest, clean and direct. I leaned back in my chair and let out a slow breath. If I said yes, I would be walking into a room where I had spent years being invisible without ever actually being there. My phone buzzed again. "Sam, did you see it?" he wrote. "This could change everything." I stared at the message for a second, then typed back, "Yeah, let's do it." I hit send before I could rethink it. Then I confirmed the meeting. The calendar updated instantly. For a moment, everything felt very still, like something had shifted quietly under the surface. I thought about my mother's message again, about the careful way she had asked me to stay away, about all the small moments that had added to this quiet understanding that I didn't quite belong. A slow breath left my chest. If they believed I was not enough to stand in their world, then they never really seen me. And for the first time, I was about to walk into that world without asking permission. This time, they wouldn't be able to look past me. Chapter 2. The next morning started with my phone ringing before I even made it to my desk, and I already knew it was not going to be a quiet day. It was my father again, calling like nothing had changed overnight. I answered anyway. "You still doing contract work?" he asked, skipping straight to it. I stepped into my office and shut the door behind me. No, I said. I run a company. There was a pause on the other end, short but telling. Your sister is in New York working with real clients, he said. Big firms. That kind of work actually goes somewhere. I let the silence stretch for a second. So does mine, I said. He did not respond to that. He never did when the answer did not fit the version of me he preferred. Your mother just wants things to be comfortable this year, he added, softer now. You understand that, right? Comfortable for who? I thought, but I did not say it out loud. Yeah, I said. I understand. The call ended the way it always did, like a conversation that never really happened. That night we had a family video call. I almost skipped it, but something in me wanted to see it clearly this time, without softening it. Olivia appeared first, sitting in a bright apartment that looked expensive in a quiet, effortless way. My parents joined a second later, already smiling. You look tired, my mother said to me. Long week? I replied. Olivia tilted her head, studying me with that careful expression she used when she was about to say something that sounded kind but was not. Leora has always liked trying different things, she said, but at some point you need something realistic, something stable. My father nodded. My mother smiled. Someone off camera laughed lightly. Not everyone is built for scale, Olivia added, almost as an afterthought. The words landed harder than anything else she had said. No one pushed back. No one even hesitated. I felt that old familiar feeling, the one that made me want to shrink just enough to make everything easier for everyone else. I nodded once. Maybe, I said. The conversation moved on without me. Olivia talked about meetings in Manhattan, about clients, about dinners with people whose names carried weight. I listened, but something inside me did not bend the way it used to. For the first time, I was not trying to fit into what they were saying. I was measuring it. When the call ended, I sat there staring at the blank screen, letting the silence settle. Then my office door opened. Sam walked in, already holding his laptop, his expression tight. We have a problem, he said. I straightened. What kind of problem? He turned the screen toward me. MedPredict is pushing a story that we mishandled patient data, he said. It's not public yet, but it's spreading through the right channels. My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed steady. That's not true. I know, he said, but one hospital already paused expansion with us this morning. That landed harder than I expected. Which one? St. Vincent, he replied. I leaned back slowly. Ethan. It did not need explaining. Ethan Cole had been watching us for years, always just out of reach, waiting for a moment like this. My phone rang before I could say anything else. Laura Chen. I answered immediately. Tell me this is nothing, I said. Her voice was calm but direct. We've gone through everything again, she said. There's no violation, no breach, nothing that puts you at risk legally. Then why does it feel like we're already losing ground? Because perception moves faster than facts, she said. If this continues, it could trigger a review, not because you did anything wrong, but because enough noise forces attention. I closed my eyes for a second. And the timing? Not an accident, she said. They know you're about to close your Series D. I glanced at my calendar. 3 weeks. If this deal slipped, we might not get another chance like this. We'll be ready, I said. You already are, she replied. Now you just need to make sure the right people believe it. The call ended and the room felt quieter than before. Sam crossed his arms. This is targeted, he said. I nodded. Yeah, I said. It is. I stood up and walked to the window again, looking out at the city. 6 years of work, and it could all be slowed down by something that wasn't even real. Why do I still feel like I have to prove anything? I said quietly. Sam did not answer. He did not need to. Later that night, my phone rang again.
Daniel. I hesitated, then picked up. We're reviewing a few healthcare AI companies, he said. If one of these deals goes through, it's going to be big. I leaned against my desk. Sounds like you. In the background, I heard Olivia. It sounds familiar, like something Leora used to talk about all the time. A few people laughed. Someone added, some ideas sound better than they actually are. I did not react. Not this time. Because now I knew exactly what they were talking about, and I knew something they didn't. The conversation ended, and the silence that followed felt different, sharper. I turned back to my desk and opened the Hartman Group email again, reading it more carefully this time. They weren't looking at me the way my family did. They were looking at the numbers, the results, the things that could not be explained away. Sam spoke from behind me. We're still going to New York, right? I nodded. Yeah, I said. I closed the laptop slowly. This was not just about family anymore, and whatever happened next, it was going to force them to see exactly what they had spent years ignoring.
Chapter 3. Something felt off before anyone said a word. Like the air in the room had already decided how this was going to go, and I was just catching up to it. New York was colder than I remembered, but it was not the weather that stayed with me as I walked into the building. It was the silence, the kind that made you aware of every step you took. The office was exactly what you would expect. Glass, steel, quiet confidence. People moved with purpose, but without urgency, like nothing here ever had to prove itself. I gave my name at the front desk and followed the assistant upstairs. When the doors opened, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection. Calm, collected, not how I felt. The conference room was already half full. A few people glanced up, then back down to their notes. No one looked surprised to see me, but no one recognized me either. At the far end of the table sat Arthur Whitman. He did not look imposing in the obvious way. No raised voice, no sharp gestures, but the way he sat, still, focused, made it clear he did not miss much. He looked at me for a moment before speaking. I hear you have been dealing with some concerns around your data. His voice was even, but there was weight behind it. I have been dealing with misinformation, I said. There are no issues with our data. He held my gaze a second longer than necessary. If someone is trying to damage your reputation, he said, what do you do? I stay with the facts. If the foundation is solid, it holds. He nodded once, but did not look convinced or unconvinced, just interested. He was not just listening, he was testing me. The meeting moved forward, questions coming from different angles, compliance, growth, risk. I answered each one without rushing, without trying to fill silence that did not need to be filled. Still, something in the room felt sharper than it should have been. My phone vibrated against the table. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again. I glanced down. Laura. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. What changed? I asked. They escalated, she said immediately. Another hospital requested a compliance review this morning. I closed my eyes for a second. Which one? Mercy General, she said. They're not pulling out, but they are slowing everything down. That was enough. They're pushing harder before the deal closes, I said. Yes, and there's something else. The language they are using references internal workflow details. I felt something tighten in my chest. That is not public information. I know, which means either they are guessing very well or someone has been talking. I leaned against the wall, staring at the floor. Someone in that room knew more than they should. Be careful, she added. This is no longer just external pressure. The call ended, and for a moment I stayed where I was, letting that thought settle in. When I walked back into the room, I noticed it immediately. Ethan Whitman was watching me. Not casually, not politely. He flipped through the documents in front of him, then looked up. Your full name, he said. Can you repeat it? Leora Vance, I replied. He repeated it under his breath. Vance.
His fingers moved toward his laptop, and I saw the screen reflect faintly in his glasses. For a second, I thought he already knew. Before he could type anything, Arthur spoke again. "Let us stay focused," he said calmly. "We can review background later." Ethan hesitated, then slowly closed the laptop. "Right," he said. But the moment had already shifted. I could feel it. The rest of the meeting carried on, but the tone had changed now. The questions were more precise, now less about the company and more about me. I answered anyway, clear, direct, no extra explanation. Across the table, Arthur watched without interrupting, his expression unreadable. Somewhere else in the city, things were moving in a different direction. At a private dinner, Margaret Whitman leaned slightly toward Olivia. "The founder your firm is considering, she's impressive." Olivia smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "I've heard a little about her," she replied. Another voice joined in. "Not many people build something like that on their own." Olivia did not respond right away. For once, she did not have control of the narrative. Back in the office, the timeline began to stretch. More questions, more reviews, more hesitation. Nothing obvious, nothing anyone could point to, just enough friction to slow everything down. On the final day, I walked into the boardroom knowing something was about to surface. Everyone was already seated. Ethan looked up the moment I entered. His expression was no longer neutral. "Wait," he said slowly. The room quieted. He leaned forward slightly, studying my face like he was matching it to something he should have recognized sooner. "Vance," he repeated. The name hung there, heavier now. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. The version of me they had ignored for years was about to collide with the one sitting in front of them, and this time there was no way to separate the two. Chapter 4. The room did not react right away, but I felt the shift land anyway, like something heavy settling into place that no one could pretend away. Ethan was the first to move. He leaned back just enough to study me differently, not as a founder anymore, but as someone he should have recognized sooner. "You are connected to Olivia Keller," he said. "I am," I answered. No hesitation, no softening. The silence that followed stretched longer this time. It was not confusion, it was recalculation. For years, I had existed on the edges of their world, close enough to see everything, far enough to never matter. Now I was sitting across from them, and the distance was gone. Arthur Whitman did not react the way the others did. He did not look surprised or unsettled. He simply watched me, his expression steady, like he was fitting a missing piece into something he had already understood. Then he spoke. "We continue." It was quiet, controlled, and final. The room reset around his voice. But nothing actually reset. The questions came back sharper. Ethan flipped through the materials again, slower this time. "Walk me through your projections," he said. I met his eyes. "They are built on verified adoption, not assumptions. We do not inflate numbers to make a story work." He nodded, but there was tension in the movement. Arthur leaned forward slightly. "And the compliance issue raised this morning," he said. "Explain it." "It is not an issue," I said. "It is pressure." I let that sit for a second before continuing. If there were a real problem, you would not be hearing about it through rumors. Arthur held my gaze, then glanced down at the documents again. He understood exactly what I was saying. I leaned back slightly, not to relax, but because I did not need to push anymore. "You built your empire ignoring people like me," I said, my voice even. "Now you are asking me to let you in." No one interrupted. No one dismissed it. For the first time, they were not evaluating me. They were adjusting to me. The rest of the meeting moved forward, but the direction had changed. There was no more testing for weakness, only confirmation. Somewhere across the city, the reaction was immediate. Olivia did not wait. My phone rang as I stepped outside the building.
I already knew it was her before I looked. "What are you doing?" she asked. "What I have always been doing," I said. "You are sitting in a room with Whitman Capital and you did not think to tell me?" I exhaled slowly. "You never asked." Her voice tightened. "That is not how this works." "It is exactly how this works," I said. "You just never had to notice before." There was a pause. "You could have come to me," she said. "I did," I replied. "You just did not see me when I did." Silence again. It felt different this time. "You are making this harder than it needs to be," she said. "No," I said. "It has always been this hard. You're just seeing it now." I ended the call before she could respond. Back inside, things were already moving. The pressure that had built over the last few days started to collapse under its own weight. Laura called later that afternoon. "We cleared everything," she said. "There's nothing in the audit, nothing in the claims." "I know," I said. "They pushed for more, but it did not hold," she added. I nodded, even though she could not see it. "I know they were hoping something would stick," I said. "Yes," she replied. "It did not." By the end of the week, 3 major funds pulled out of Helix Bio. No one wanted to back a company built on noise. The narrative shifted fast. People who had been cautious started reaching out again. Conversations that had slowed suddenly picked up speed. Momentum does not ask for permission, it just moves. The next meeting felt different before it even started. Same room, same table. But now there was clarity. Arthur did not waste time. "We reviewed the findings," he said. "There are no compliance concerns." He let the words settle. The delays were external, not structural. Ethan glanced at me briefly, then back to Arthur. "So we proceed," he said. Arthur nodded. "We do more than proceed." He looked directly at me now. "We lead the round." The room stilled. 280 million, he continued. For a second, no one spoke. Then the number landed. I did not react right away. I let it sit, the way they had let silence sit earlier. "Understood," I said. That was all. No excitement, no relief, just confirmation. Across the table, Ethan leaned back again, this time with something closer to acceptance. "And the competitor," one of the partners asked. "Do we expect further disruption?" "They do not have anything real," I said. "If they did, they would have used it already." Arthur nodded once. "Then they are not relevant." Just like that, it was over. Not because I fought harder, because I outlasted them. A few days later, I saw Olivia in person. No boardroom, no audience, just the two of us. She stood still when she saw me, like she was deciding how to approach something she had never had to face before. "I did not expect this," she said. "I did," I replied. She looked at me longer than she used to. "You could have handled this differently," she said. "I did," I said. "You just were not looking." That landed. I saw it in the way her expression shifted, subtle but real. For the first time, she was not in control of the story. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she nodded once. Not agreement, not apology, just acknowledgement. I turned to leave, and as I walked away, something became clear in a way it never had before. This was never about proving anything to them. It was about building something they could not reach. And now that I had, there was nothing left for them to take. They did not lose me. They just never realized I was the one they needed. Chapter 5. The shift did not hit like a wave. It came in quietly, the way things do when they are real. At first, it was just small moments, conversations that paused when I walked in, looks that lasted a second longer than they used to, people adjusting without saying why. Then it became obvious. At a private dinner not long after the deal closed, I watched it happen right in front of me. Victoria Whitman leaned toward Melissa Grant with a polite smile that carried more weight than it looked. "Your sister built something impressive," she said. Melissa held her glass a little tighter. "She has always been ambitious," she replied. Someone else at the table shook their head. It is more than that, they said. It is discipline. Not everyone has that kind of focus. Melissa nodded, but she did not add anything else. For once, she did not guide the room. For once, she was not the one people were trying to impress. Within weeks, people stopped calling her the successful one. They started asking how she missed what I built. The shift was not loud, but it was complete. Outside of those rooms, the consequences moved faster. By the end of the month, Helix Bio was no longer part of the conversation. 3 major funds pulled out quietly. No announcements, no statements, just distance. No one trusted them enough to stay. Laura sent the update in a short message. "We are fully clear. All claims dismissed. No exposure anywhere." I read it once, then again, letting it settle in a way I had not allowed myself to before. Case closed. There was no celebration, no moment where everything paused so I could take it in. It just moved on. That is how real outcomes work. They do not wait for you to feel ready. A few days later, my parents came to see me. We met in a small restaurant just outside the city, somewhere neutral, somewhere that did not belong to any of us. My mother spoke first. "I am sorry," she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered, like something in her had already shifted before she sat down. I looked at her, not with anger, not with expectation, just with clarity. "I needed you when I had nothing," I said. "That was when it mattered." Her eyes dropped. "I did not understand," she said quietly. "You did not try to," I replied. My father sat beside her, still, his hands folded in front of him. "We were wrong," he said. That was it. No defense, no explanation, no attempt to rewrite the past. Just the truth. For a moment, I thought I would feel something stronger. Relief, maybe. Some kind of emotional release. But what I felt instead was distance. Not cold, not empty, just clean. I was no longer waiting for them to see me, and that changed everything. By the time December came, the city felt different. Or maybe I did. I did not go back to Connecticut. I did not feel the need to return to a place where I had spent years trying to prove I belonged. Instead, I flew out to Lake Tahoe with my team. The air was sharp, the kind that clears your head whether you want it to or not. The lake stretched out in front of us, quiet and endless. Samir was trying to start a fire and failing in a way that made it impossible not to laugh. "This should not be this hard," he said. Daniel shook his head. "You run operations for a company at this level, and this is what takes you down?" Samir smiled. "It's a different skill set," he said. I watched them for a moment, the ease between them, the absence of pressure. No one here was measuring worth. No one was deciding who mattered more. We were just there. That night, we stayed outside longer than we should have, the cold settling in around us without anyone mentioning it. At some point, my phone buzzed. Arthur Whitman. I stepped away to answer. "You handled that well," he said. "I did what I had to do," I replied. There was a small pause. "Most people do not," he said. I looked out at the lake, the surface reflecting the last of the light. For a long time, I thought I needed them to see me. "And now?" he asked. "I don't," I answered. He let that sit. "If people can't recognize your value," he said, "that is not your failure." I exhaled slowly. "I know," I said. "Good. Then you are where you're supposed to be." The call ended, and I stayed there for a moment, letting the quiet settle in. I did not feel the need to go back to who I was before. I did not feel the need to prove anything to anyone. I did not get revenge. I became untouchable. When I walked back to the others, their voices carried easily through the cold air, familiar, steady, real. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't holding anything together. I wasn't waiting for something to change. It already had. I stopped trying to be enough for people who never saw me, and somewhere along the way, without forcing it, without asking for it, I became more than enough for myself.
If you have ever felt invisible in your own life, like no matter what you do, it's never quite enough, maybe it's not because you're lacking anything. Maybe you're just standing in the wrong place, waiting to be seen by people who were never looking. And if that's you, stay, because there's always a moment when everything shifts, and when it does, you'll finally see yourself the way they never could.